obligation.
You've got to protect your case on appeal either way. So you've got to make the calls so that you don't get overturned on appeal, because it just causes everybody more problems.
So I'm
which we saw, like in the Cosby case, people were
following
pissed,
along
like,
the Nick Rekieta
sort of maybe,
group chat stream thing that he's got going here, this panel.
So he didn't assert his Fifth Amendment right. So he gets overturned on appeal. That's what happens.
Conversing about these legal matters while waiting for any changes or hearings or anything that go on in the courtroom.
Frustrating watching this, Judge.
Yeah, I agree.
Included on this panel right now is
I really believe he was hoping the jury would bail him out.
Hogue Law, Legal Bites, Andrew Bronca, Good Logic, Emily D. Baker, Ty Beard, and Nick Rekieta. Viva Fry just left a moment ago, and Runkle of the Bailey was getting onto an airplane. He had to leave as well. Ty Beard is Vic Mignogna's, trying to get it right, Mignonia, the voice actor who sued Funimation for defamation. That is his attorney. He's not associated with the case, doesn't have a YouTube channel, but he's friends with Nick, so he gets on here and is conversing. Meanwhile, at the same time as all this is happening, in the chat on this channel, the Adam Krigler is a mod, and he's here modding. So it's a real party in this live stream chat. I'll put a link to it in the description below. This is going to be going on basically 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, until the jury renders a verdict, which might be today, might not be today. We might find out there's a mistrial today, we might not. We might find out there's a hung jury today, we might not. We're also waiting on, after yesterday's motion to dismiss hearing, the judge has stated that he would like to get the prosecutor and the assistant DA, who are both on this case as lawyers, on the stand in hearing under oath to discuss possible misconduct.
We were talking about this a little bit earlier.
Big deal.
And I suppose that they might
and so,
like, it's so blurry,
meanwhile, they're just kind of
it's not going to matter,
conversing about relevant legal topics. These guys are everything from tech lawyers, family court lawyers, defamation lawyers, self-defense lawyer, former prosecutor. Rekieta himself is a pro bono defense lawyer, not the same as a public defender, but he chooses the cases, and he says, we'll figure it out after the case. And he's usually pretty good about it, from what I understand. He's making his money off of YouTube at this point, so lawyering can be done for free to help people, which is actually really cool.
Exercise that rationale and argue it should be excluded. You don't
and at this moment, with no court case happening other than they're waiting on anything, there are 80,000 people.
That you could see the chart,
and that's gone down.
see how close it was, and those kinds of things.
They had over 85 earlier. Yesterday they had over 100,000 while the motion hearings were occurring with this big deal prosecutorial misconduct thing coming out. And what that basically is they knowingly provided much lower quality, smaller file size copy of what they're claiming to be one of their vital pieces of provocation evidence to the defense. And then they claimed that it was a mistake that happened recently, but it turns out that they've had this evidence for weeks, and the lo-fi copy that was made and eventually sent to the defense was actually made less like an hour or something like after the initial download of the creation of the video. So they received the file, and within an hour and 20 minutes, something like that, it had been fully manipulated, changed around, and shrunk. And then that file was what was eventually uploaded and sent to them incorrectly. But the question is, why would you create a low-quality version anyway? On top of this, the real misconduct isn't just altering or withholding evidence, but also lying. And what it is the prosecutor.
Very nice to meet you as well. I'm obviously new here, but
what's his name? Kraus, ADA Kraus, Assistant DA Kraus.
That's me.
In their evidence, use a screen capture from their own laptop, showing the program they're using to access and then pull up and view these files.
Turns out our youngest had taken it and put
and it is a program which is used by video content creators for the specific purpose of compressing files, creating new aspect ratios. Effectively, it's a video editing suite of fairly high-end nature. And this
But it just goes to show
assistant district attorney is using this program like a knowledgeable user, making it obvious that he knows how to use it while simultaneously claiming that he doesn't know how such a copy could even be created.
That's I'll switch over.
So we're waiting to find out about that, but the gist so far, they seem to think the way this judge has been going is that he's going to wait till the jury comes in with the verdict.
Well,
then he's going to hold hearings on the evidence and other
that
pieces of
happened
things.
last night in which
Then he's going to make a
a,
determination
a
as to whether or not there should be a
journalist
mistrial
was,
before reading the
caught
verdict, would be my
following
guess.
the
Out loud,
jury
at least.
van,
And if it comes back with an acquittal, all of this is
and
moot.
that journalist
That's what he's
caught
waiting
said
for.
that they were
So the
doing
jury
so
comes
on the
back, it's either an
orders of
acquittal
an
or it's not. If it's not an
MSNBC
acquittal, he's going to argue these motions and decide on a mistrial.
MSNBC has
And we, the
categorized
public,
him as
may
a
never
freelance
know what the
journalist,
verdict actually
and they said
was.
they did no
And that's
such
actually the
reporter,
best
but,
situation because
that
it protects the
producer
jurors.
that he named,
It doesn't give anybody a legit
or
excuse to do
manager,
anything but be
whatever,
mad at the
from
judge if they
MSNBC
want
has
to be. And
deleted
he
their
himself
Twitter
has said
and LinkedIn
he's
profile.
used to it. He's ready
So,
for it.
Good.
So maybe it'll work out. What the judge is
Is
basically getting at is that he
They've been ticketed,
wants
yes.
to prove that the system
but
works.
it could, I mean, I
That
think it could run
the
afoul of
mechanisms
general
in place
juror
for
intimidation.
mistrial
The-
protections
the-
will come into
that's
play
typically
legitimately
either a state or a
if
federal
there are
crime
questions or
is
issues, which they
going
now have.
into,
But then we have to come
attempting
through with,
influence the
will the
lawful
facts nonetheless
conduct of a jury, right?
Well, I'm sure
allow a
just
jury to acquit?
after that through prosecuting parents for getting.
But at this point, though, the time they're taking
the
on
court's gonna
the
refer to the
deliberation,
DA's
the
office.
rumors
They're
are
like, "Can you send
that
out your
the
DA
foreperson
investigators to do this?"
is
And
a
they'll be
woman,
like, "Yeah,
the
we'll
foreman,
get right on
forewoman
that
of
once
the
we
jury,
kinda jump kick
the
me
one
out."
who is
But-
basically in
Krause
control
will email
of
the request for the DA
summoning the
to
bailiff
go
to end the
investigate to
sessions,
himself and then send
is a
me
holdout for
compressed version
conviction
of it.
and maybe
And
the
they'd be like,
only
"Nope,
one.
we
By the
tried."
way, was it?
Nobody knows. It
wasn't
could be
just
anywhere
the
from 1 to 3
prosecutor
people
was trained
that are
as-
holding out.
as rebuttal, was it?
And
Well,
so
back to the jury. I mean, that's something.
Well,
that,
yeah.
they went into the courtroom, they
I think that was
reviewed video on the big screen, which
Krause was angry.
It was all.
you have manipulated digital footage, which is effectively a computer
I'm
simulation
surprised
of
it
what
didn't
the
put
AI
jury
believes
on
the
board
scene would
that
have
he
looked
seems
like
to
if
be
there was
in their
better
faces
focus and
yelling at
lighting
them. And the only reason to do that
and
is
better
that
zoom
he thinks he's losing
through a
and that
TV,
they're
which
not
itself
listening to
uses
him.
an AI
And
algorithm
the
to
defense, if
upscale,
they had a
which is
strategy
to
piss these
add
prosecutors
to
off,
the
it
image,
worked, but they could have done
meaning
it
they
a
are
lot more.
doubly
They
looking
could-
at
both of these
a
prosecutors got pretty quick to
artificially
get,
simulated
brazen
impression of
with
what the
court,
scene might have been,
and I
but not
think the
actually
defense
evidence
leaned
of the
into that
scene.
more by poking
This has
the
yet to be
prosecutors
ruled by the judge because
and
the judge does not
interrupting
fully
them
understand, and
repeating
the
things over and over,
prosecutors
like I
appear to
want
be
to do,
banking on the fact
and
that the
getting them
judge is
angry
not going
so
to
that
be able
they
to
then
understand.
argue to court.
They clearly hate to
What
have
this
their
would come to
reputation
is, if it's a mistrial without
Yeah,
prejudice, they
deserved.
get to redo the trial, except the state's case doesn't get to
And
change.
lawyers,
All their evidence remains in, and they must repeat their arguments as their case. They can't change it from new information because they should have had all this information to begin with. And the state has a responsibility under law and constitution, I believe state constitution in their case, but it's the prosecutor has an obligation ethically to present all evidence, including exculpatory evidence, into the record. So if they find new video that proves that he didn't do anything but self-defense, the state must enter it in, and the judge can say, okay, so we can agree this should be shut down, let's dismiss. That hasn't happened, even though there is exculpatory evidence. Again, prosecutorial misconduct has already been mentioned on other things.
That the judge is back.
No,
right?
no, I was just pulling up for the chat to let them know that the video feed is back.
I know that you know that I know that you know that the judge.
They also identified Jump Kick Man. It turned out the prosecutors knew him the entire time
He left somewhere that the prosecutor
and refused to let him testify.
Handbrake on there.
Apparently.
So they called him a
Which in
non-complaining
and of
witness,
itself
but he
is
may have been a
not,
complaining witness.
Not a problem. I mean,
But they didn't like his story. They didn't like something about. They felt that it wouldn't work. So the thing is, they get to a retrial, mistrial. The defense can do whatever they need to do to be like, okay, well now that we know what they've been doing, let's maybe he gets new attorneys. Maybe we get more experts. And the thing is the questions about the AI upscaling on 4K TV after using a program and all this other. An expert can come in for the defense to shut down all of that. And based on the expert testimony within hearings about this, that's what the judge was saying, is that he wants expert testimony on the digital manipulation of this stuff within the mistrial motion hearing, not within the trial itself.
I mean,
Sorry.
So then after that, if there's a mistrial, and none of this stuff is worked out. What'll happen is the
Let's just say he's unlikely to have
next trial will probably have the same prosecutor, possibly the same judge. This prosecutor cannot try in front of another judge in that district who is also of the same kind of level as the current judge, because the two of them are shacked up, and they try and make it sound like there's no relationship there. They're just real close buddies that have been roommates for a long time, and it's like, okay, I get it, and it's not a big deal, and it's not a bad thing, right? That people have relationships like that, even if it's, nothing matters with that, except that
I'm surprised
You know what I want?
living in a household with a
That's
judge,
usually
when
the
you're
one
an
that they go for.
assistant district attorney, means that you're unable to, you cannot try cases in front of your roommate as a judge. That's a conflict of interest, whether there's a relationship or not. So the state has really botched their case. They never really had a case. This never should have been brought. There's speculation as to whether or not the state will decide, will choose to prosecute this a second time if they get a mistrial without prejudice. Now, if they get a mistrial with prejudice, that means no charges, no time, other than time served, and maybe we'll be compensated for that. The bail should go to the former defendant, and there is no, as they say, the double jeopardy rule applies, which means he cannot be retried for this if that happens. Possibly should have happened anyway, but like I said, this judge has got this thing where he's like, I want to prove that the system works, and so we're going to let this go through, and I will pull the plug at such point as I decide that the system's not working, which kind of nullifies on principle, the purpose of the system. But that's also why it's there, though, is because sometimes the system breaks down and doesn't work, or a political prosecution of somebody with no real reason to do so occurs. They were talking about that a bit, mentioning some other cases. They didn't mention the West Memphis 3, which was another local yokel malicious prosecution where they set up the local goth metalhead kids, one of whom was low IQ. They bullied him into a confession. One of them died on death, or was executed before the exoneration came out, because it turned out that the stepdad of one of the 3 kids that was murdered had all of his teeth removed just before the trial happened, and the boys were found with bite marks, and they couldn't identify the bite marks because nobody had teeth that could be matched.
The joysticks for the drone program, right?
Eventually, these dudes got out of prison after one of them died.
Thrustmaster joysticks are modeled off of F-16.
So that's why the system has this thing. The judge should be able to say, look, this is not what you're, I mean, he's already said, I don't believe your good faith thing. You've already crossed the line. There's going to be a day of reckoning. And I think that day of reckoning is probably going to be when the verdict comes in. He's going to look at the card and say, okay, let's talk about this here. And then he's going to keep everybody else in suspense about the verdict until after the mistrial motions and everything to determine whether this piece of paper even gets read. It's like Schrodinger's cat. Which is funny because it's Judge Schroeder.
They put the goggles on.
It sounds the same. So anyways, he can keep this thing closed up, and then when it comes to the point of the mistrial, he can declare the mistrial and then go, nobody will ever know. Jury's dismissed. Don't talk about it. Sir, you're free to go. That could happen, conceivably. Don't know. So anyways, yeah, I'm going to put the link to this in the description, and
I have no idea if that's true. It's too good to check.
It's going to be on tomorrow again, about 8:45 a.m. Central Time. It's going to run until 5 p.m.-ish Central Time, possibly longer. There's going to be a panel of expert lawyers discussing the matter and a few other things as well, and from all different possible legal perspectives of what's going on. It's an invaluable resource for anyone who seriously is curious or wants to know anything about your own individual rights, how the court system works, why things go the way they do. Because a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people really don't understand. They get caught up in watching TV shows of procedural court drama nonsense, and they think that speedy and public trial means that this thing is this. It's like, no. You gotta walk slow, you gotta move slow, you gotta talk slow. The person recording it is literally a person typing out what you're saying in shorthand. And you have to speak slowly enough about the pace that I'm speaking right now throughout the entire case in court. And when it gets too fast and back and forth, they can't write it down. The judge goes, slow down, repeat that, so that they can record it. The motions, the processes, and then sitting there and going, why isn't this lawyer objecting?
trying to hold
or
back
watching and going,
voice.
dude, why
You
did
can
he just
see them
object?
get
There are reasons.
an
These guys
emotional
explain it. It's great. Because
however
sometimes
else you
that's a
wanna describe
bogus
it,
objection.
and then
Sometimes he
kind
really
of
should have
flip the
objected
table
there.
and decide
And
the
sometimes they're like, yeah, that's a good one. He's got a
I don't know
point.
whether that's their strategy or whether
When
that's
the
just how they
prosecutor, who
present
lied throughout the
to
opening and the
board,
closing,
but whether or not it's
nevertheless
accurate,
gave a good
legal minds can differ.
structured argument, doesn't mean his argument was good. Meant that the way he built the wording was good. And they say, you know what, that guy did really good. Credit where credit is due. That kind of thing. It's an honest panel. I really appreciate it. So I suggest people watch this or subscribe to Rekieta Law's channel and get his little shorts and clips of some of these conversations, some of the relevant explanations. His interest is twofold. Number one, he's making a killing off of YouTube, so he's going to keep doing it. But number two is that he is providing, like I said, an invaluable resource to the rest of us, something that we should have. We don't get civics lessons in school anymore. We don't get educated unless we voluntarily seek to learn about the law. The ignorance of the law is never an excuse, though, in court or in any charges. So the more all of us individually know about the law in general, the better we fare if we ever have to go to court. And we have rights, no matter what. That's the thing. This is why I follow this kind of stuff. It's fascinating to me. Also, some of the names that they come up with to make fun of some of these idiots is just great. It turns out that the lead prosecutor on the Rittenhouse case has been confirmed to have previously used a name on Twitter or Instagram or something that was like Flufferboy 2014 or something.
It's disturbing.
Like, there's some hilarious shit coming out about this case. It's ridiculous. And also, one of these people that was on here, one of these lawyers was it's Legal Bites. That's where she's got the cat in the background. You could hear her cat meowing. It was pretty funny. So I'm going to end it here. Put the link in the description. Started uploading. Everybody have a good day. And definitely check out the link. Subscribe to that guy. Hit the notification bell. Because he's going to have pretty much the clearest cut explanations of things that the media lies about. So if you want to know what's really going on, pay attention to this dude's channel. Find out what's going on legally because it affects us all. Thank you.
Once again, Nick, perps.